Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Battletech Advanced 3062 and our Mechbay series, which is taking a look at some of the mechs and situations that you will encounter in campaign, sort of talking through your various options, the various stages, and strategies to make your mechs run smoother. So today we're looking at the Thug, and it is a mech that you can find, particularly the 10E version, in the House Merrick or Free Worlds League faction store. I do believe the full chassis is sold after the changes in the recent patch. I am not entirely certain, as this was recorded pre-patch, or at least, well, prior to my own upgrading to said patch. Anyway, the Thug is it's an unusual mech. It's meant to sort of be a competitor to the Warhammer, in lore at least, and because of that, you will see it sporting double PPCs in the base configuration. This is not something I'm a fan of. No, don't get me wrong, PPCs are just fine. It's just that, well, they're fine. They're not exactly exceptional, and what we're looking for is exceptional. Now, the first thing that you should notice about this mech is actually not the armor. It's that you have Thug Improved Targeting, which takes the place of the upper sensor slot, but gives +1 accuracy with all ranged weapons. This makes it actually very nice in terms of a early to mid-game mech to pick up, because you won't necessarily have all of the targeting systems that you would want. You might not have that nice TTS evasion, or energy evasion, or missile evasion, or things like that, that you would want to put in all of your sort of later game builds, and this gives a nice blanket +1. Now, this is stackable with the +1s that you get from lower arms. So everything that you put in the arms of this mech will have, well, +2 compared to something in the right torso, or left torso, or even CT, of some mech that, well, doesn't have this quirk, and or a mech that doesn't allow arm actuators, like some Omni mechs, some specialty mechs as well, but didn't have it in the lore. So that's good to note, but what does that actually leave us? Well, first off, we need to get rid of these PPCs, and we need to do that in order to maximize our armor. 9.375 tons is not a lot, so let's see what this looks like without the SRMs. And let's see what this looks like if we get rid of some of our heat sinks as well, because every single one of those is a ton, and we don't necessarily have that space. We already do have equaling +2, we have a core 320, and that core 320 is getting us a measly, oh, okay, that's moving pretty good for an assault mech, I guess. 4.7, pretty decent, not exceptional, but pretty decent. I think we'll leave that here for this one. Well, so one of my weaknesses in mech building, and I'll just go ahead and confess to this because I think it's a pretty common one, is I love to throw XL engines on everything. So we're not going to do that this time around. We need to make sure that we're building something that, well, maybe you don't have the cash for an XL engine refit, maybe this guy is going to be fulfilling a more frontline role, and so you don't want somebody to be chewing through a single torso and killing the mech. The one thing that can happen earlier on in campaigns as you get your first assault mech is, well, he's not going to have as much evasion, he's going to be attempting target for the AI, and will probably get focused pretty heavily. If that means that, well, he's the only one they'll be shooting at, and you have an XL engine in there, you're cutting your survivability for the mech effectively in half, if not even more so. So we have 20.375 tons remaining, and we need to make good use of it without doing things like that. What we can do is we can get, I think we can justify saying standard ferrofibrous. This is pretty easy to scavenge out of enemy mechs or things like that. It's not like we're throwing 3rd gen armor on, or ferro-lamellar or something like that. Standard ferrofibrous shouldn't be too big of an issue to encounter. That's fine, we have 23 tons now, and we'll talk about what happens if you use single or double heat sinks, but one of the strategies to avoid having way too much heat is to avoid energy weapons. And, well, just to put it to you this way, if we go back and look at the PPCs that were in this mech to begin with, 25 heat per. On a standard heatsink kit with equaling +2, we have, well, let's see, 48 heat sinking. Without the +2, we'd be sitting at 40. So the double PPC build here, 25 heat per shot, is 50. So without the equaling +2, we'd be generating 10 excess heat every time we fire our 2 guns. 110 damage. It's not horrible for a stock mech, but stock mechs are not exactly what we're looking for. So let's see if we can do something a little bit better. To mitigate that, we're going to be using some of our free tonnage with, I think autocannons might be a good idea. I'm sort of building this as we go, as we're talking about it together, so there will be some things that you might want to change on your own. I think, so one of the things to watch out for is, particularly in BTA 3062, it's very easy to make medium mechs in particular go very quickly, and by very quickly I mean sprinting at 10 kind of thing. I currently have a Centurion in the Irby Derby campaign that moves at 710. Your thug is never going to keep up with it. So putting some long-range armaments on here is not a horrible idea. Let's throw an Ultra AC5 on there. We'll worry about ammunition here in a minute if I like the build. And let's also say, well, okay, let's grab, we have 4 missile slots here, and let's take a look. So an LRM-20 weighs 10 tons, and LRM-5 weighs 2. So, well, on a per missile basis anyway, you save a little bit of tonnage if you can build out LRM-5s instead of an LRM-20. So to make this, to cobble together 20 missiles out of 4 LRM-5s, you actually save a whole 2 tons, which you can use on ammunition. So we'll throw those in there. Let's do 1, 2, and 3, 4. It'll be a little bit annoying when you're on that battle screen and you have all 4 of these listed separately, but it also does give you a finer grained control over your heat generation, because instead of just turning on or off the entire rack of 20 LRMs, you're turning on and off 5 at a time, so there are benefits there as well. Now, one of the problems that I think we'll have if we go over to equip, one of the best ways to make LRMs really useful is to put on FCS Artemis 4. And okay, that does fit even with a thug improved targeting, that's good. You definitely want this anytime you can pick it up. Thankfully, it is pretty easy to scavenge, at least in my experience. And let's go over to our ammunition. LRMs have a bunch of fancy ammunition. I really would just say, unless you are doing it for a particular reason, stick with the Art 4. So this gives us 6 volleys. I think that's a little bit light. Let's go ahead and go up to 12 volleys, which is a little bit heavy. I tend to say, assume 10 volleys for most things, unless you're really just out of your depth. And if you put too much ammunition in, you're going to be out of your depth for other reasons anyway. So if we go over to, I do like this Ultra AC5 in here, I think that's a good thing. So let's see, oh, ammunition, not weapon. And scroll all the way down. Let's find Ultra AC5. Should be here in just a moment. It's actually easier to do in campaign when you have fewer options. Let's throw one of them on there. Now one of these will get us 15 shots. A half ton will get us 7 shots. So we could go up to 22. I think that is a good idea for a couple of reasons. 22 gives us 11 volleys for the Ultra AC5, pretty close to that 10 benchmark that I do like to keep to, and it also makes it easier for us to drop just a little bit of weight and get to an even 3 tons remaining. Now if we take a look at our heat efficiency, we have 48 heat sinking capability, we're only alpha striking for 32. This says to me one of 2 things. One, we might be able to afford to get rid of our E-cooling +2, or we have some space for a couple energy weapons, and that's not necessarily the worst thing. Now, we can't do anything that's heavy tonnage. We don't really want to be doing anything that is too advanced technology, but standard ER medium lasers shouldn't be too hard to come by. Just as a comparison, so we get 25 damage, 15 heat off of the ER medium lasers, and if we look at standard medium lasers, just a moment here, yes, we have 20 damage and 10 heat. So I do tend to like the ER medium lasers, not to mention the range increase, for the damage increase as well. So we'll go with those and see where that puts us. Now, you could point out that it's not exactly heat efficient, and you'd be right, but standard medium lasers have 360 max range. These have 480, so you pay a little bit in heat for the additional range and damage. And I think it's well worth the trade-off. Now if you look, we're sort of on the toasty side, right? So heat sinking 48, alpha striking for 62, and that's not to mention the heat that you generate on a sprint. This is a little bit overheated, I think, and that would be the better argument for using standard medium lasers. We cut 10 heat off of this, we'd be heat sinking for 48, alpha striking for 52, which is far better. So I think we will do that. Let's go ahead and make that switch. I know I've just talked myself out of my own design, but that's something that you will probably often find yourself doing when you are playing this game. Now, another option would be a medium pulse laser. So the difference is here. You drop even more range, and that's why I'm hesitating. But you get additional accuracy, takes additional tonnage, but that's kind of okay. I tend to put these on fast mechs, which this is very much not. The reason being, fast mech can close the distance, actually get the medium pulses on target, otherwise it's sort of just wasted space. So let's go ahead with the standard medium lasers, 2 of them, and now we have a sort of awkward 1 ton remaining, not really too sure what to do with it. I would say if you put another heatsink on, you're a little bit overcooled. But you could do it, and then you wouldn't really be... So, one thing to keep in mind, some biomes, polar biomes and water-heavy worlds anyway, you'll often get pretty good efficiency out of your heatsinks. But a build like this that's slightly overcooled, and by that I mean matching the Alpha Strike with a heatsink, well, they'll be effective even on desert worlds and lunar worlds, things like that as well, where your heat sinking efficiency will drop by as much as 20%. So this will still run cooler than some things. I think that's a good build. I think I'd be happy with this. I would run this happily in campaign, have no complaints. Without the LRM-5 trick, we'd be in a little bit of trouble. We would have to leave out one of those heat sinks, probably leave out one of the medium lasers. We would be 2 tons heavier, so we'd just be running a single medium laser here, and that is one of the benefits of the Thug's 4 separate missile hardpoints. So another thing I said we would look at is if we have a double heatsink kit, and we'll do that real quickly here. If we switch out standard double heatsink kit, well, yeah, that'll work. There we go. Now we are sinking 72 heat and alpha striking for 42. So you have a couple choices. If you take off the medium laser with 3 tons remaining, you could also take out the equaling +2 now, and you'd have still heat sinking at 60, alpha striking for 32. This opens up a couple different options. You can put in something like an ER large laser. That is 5 tons, it's also 25 heat, so it's not an insignificant amount of heat. And yeah, you're heat sinking 60, alpha striking 57. The ER large is going to give you a lot more punch, particularly at long ranges, than that standard double medium laser that we were looking at before. And this is a very capable long-range support mech. We have the ER large, we have Ultra AC5, and when that thing is jammed, and well, when the ER laser isn't landing, you have all of that crit seeking ability plus that little bit of chip damage ability from the quad LRM5, sort of simulating an LRM20. And this is an upgrade you can do, I think it's about 1.8 million C-bills, depending on your faction reputation, somewhere that sells them. But also not too hard to find as tech increases, so BTA 3062, particularly fighting against places, well, Op4s like Comstar or the Word of Blake, if you can build even a single mech from your mech salvage, you'll be able to find them. They are pretty rare in the salvage itself, its location's often destroyed. Now, I haven't really been able to pick up too many from that sort of thing, but if any at all, come to think of it. But, yeah, whatever works. Alright, that's our episode for today. Thank you all for hanging around. We'll see you again real soon.